In a world controlled by massive corporations, a steady aim and split-second decisions are needed for your megacon to complete its goals. Begin your missions at the Mercs Hub on beastsofwar.com. Become a general of mighty armies at the Kings of War Hub. Take command of elves, dwarves and orcs in this game of masked fantasy combat on beastsofwar.com.
Hi guys, and welcome to day 5 of 40k Mechanicus week. So today, AJ, is all about formations and lists.
Yeah,
so
I've got a big smile on my face.
Yeah, he's got a list that you've got to see. So we want to be today. We're going to be looking at army composition. We're going to be looking at the different formations and how that all what our options are, what we like. Then in the backstage version of this show, we're going to be looking at a series of army lists. So I presented AJ with the challenge of, look, for any of us that want to get into a Mechanicus army, whether it be Skitarii or Cult Mechanicus, can you come up with a progression, a pathway through? So starting at 500 points, what are the first things that we should get? Then moving up to 750 points, then moving up to like 1500 points. And then he's done a couple of other special lists in there as well, including his Stormlord list, which you've got to see. The whole purpose of that video is, if you want to get in, he's done some really interesting lists with some really nice options and stuff in there, and some other really cool models in the list, just to make them really fun to play. But before any of that, we're going to get stuck in and start looking at the formations. Okay, so these are the two books, as you know. What, AJ, which one are we kicking off with?
I think we'll start with the Skitarii again.
Okay, Skitarii. So, firstly, right, for anybody that's new to 40k or coming back to it, like me, what is a formation? I hear a lot of talk about formations and things like that within 40k. They were introduced. I think they were introduced in 6th edition.
It kind of started to filter into 6th edition sort of late on. Mm-hmm. Basically, the idea is, so you have your detachments, which are the likes of your combined arms detachment we've talked about. That gives you.
So that's your Force Orgs.
That's your Force Orgs.
Yeah.
Think of formations kind of as more restrictive force organization charts. So where you would have an HQ and 2 troop. This will tell you the exact units that you're allowed to take. So it might be you have to take 1 Dominus and 2 Breacher squads. And that is exactly what you're allowed within the formation. So the restrictions are much tighter. But within that, then you get a few little nice bonus special rules.
Are they effectively army lists that if you take that army list, we're going to give you some extra special rules?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, all right.
That's probably a much more concise way of explaining
right,
it.
so they're published army lists where I don't have to think about it. I just have to collect those models or proxy them, and then when I've got it put together, it confers upon me some special rules to reflect the fact that I have went for that style of army.
Now they can be combined with other formations, and they can be combined with other detachments and things like that to make up your list. But essentially,
so a list can contain multiple formations.
Multiple formations, multiple detachments,
and it gets all the benefits of that then.
And it gets all. The whole army wouldn't get it. The only units that generally get the special rules
would be the ones formation
within that formation.
Okay. Right. So that's basically what a formation is. We're going to kick off with this one here. It's the Battle Maniple. Okay. Now, is there any background or fluff to these kinds of things? Or?
Definitely, the Battle Maniple is kind of the smallest kind of task force unit that the Skitarii would have. If we look at the early part of the Codex, you can see that it's kind of drawn up in their kind of doctrine, in their sort of formation that they would have. So you can see right here, the breakdown. So coming right from the Fabricator General, who is in charge of the whole of the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yep.
So he's based on Mars. Right the way down to the very bottom, you have just here a battle maniple. Now,
Yeah.
a battle maniple is essentially the smallest kind of commanded unit of the Adeptus the Skitarii.
Yeah.
So within that, then you have a certain selection of units.
Mm-hmm.
Now you'll notice that this battle maniple actually identically reflects
Mm-hmm.
the battle maniple at the very, very back of the formations.
So this one here.
Yeah, the one that we're
Okay,
actually
so
looking
if we get down into the actual formations themselves, it's the same. It's the same
It's
thing.
the same units, yeah.
Okay. So I'll talk about the formation itself. So it has one unit of Skitarii Vanguard, a unit of Skitarii Rangers, a unit of Sicarian Ruststalkers, a unit of Sicarian Infiltrators, a unit of Sidonian Dragoons, a unit of Ironstrider Ballistari, and one Onager Doomcaller. So basically, one of each.
It's one of everything in the codex.
At first glance, I'm looking at that going, the expense of building that, but that's maybe not so bad because the Skitarii will build both those units. One box of Skitarii will build both those units. One box of Sicarians will build both those units.
They will build both, but you only get 5 in each, so you would need 2 boxes.
All right, so you need 2 boxes of the Sicarians. How many of the Sidonian Dragoons come in a box? Are they
One.
single? So you need 2 of those, and then you need 1 of the Doom Crawlers. It doesn't give you the unit size, though.
No, they can be any size. So the only restriction is that you have to take 1 of them. It doesn't say that you have to take a minimum or maximum squad size. So that's a benefit in itself. You can get away with 1 box of Skitarii.
You can make it as cheap points wise as you want, or as expensive points wise as you want. The special rules that they get is Crux Mechanicus. If this formation is your primary detachment, so your primary detachment is if you had these guys. Explain primary detachments to me.
Your primary detachment. So as we've said earlier on, you can take an army that is made up of all different types of formations, detachments, data slates, whatever.
Allies and
all that. One of them obviously has to be a primary detachment, the one that's kind of the main central backbone of the force. And the primary detachment is the one with the warlord in it. Whichever detachment.
So you just nominate it as the primary detachment. Yeah. Okay. You can re-roll the result when rolling on the Warlord traits table in Codex Skitarii. Furthermore, your Warlord has the preferred enemy special rule. Well, that's okay. Data lock. Models from this formation that are within 12 inches of an Onager Doomcrawler from this formation are leadership 10. That really fits the fluff again of the Doomcrawler spitting out orders and dictates and stuff.
So again, there you can see that they're trying to push you to take 3 because you want that unit to have as much because you can only take 1 unit.
Yeah.
You want as much coverage of that as possible.
And then it's got Tireless Advance. All models from this formation have the Crusader and Scout special rules. Units from this formation cannot outflank due to the Scout special rule, but can do as a result of a different special rule, such as Infiltrate or a Mission special rule.
So that's very similar to the Maniple. Now, we must be careful to not mix these up. The Maniple, the Skitarii Maniple, is the standard detachment. So it's the force organization chart based. There we are. It's the force organization based chart.
Yeah.
This here is the battle maniple. So same sort of wording, but it is just a formation on its own.
Yeah. Okie dokie. What is there left to say about it?
To be honest, not an awful lot. It's not a bad formation. I think all of the units are worth taking. So there's nothing in there that I would go, I have to take that to take that. That's plus it's giving you that leadership as well. The only downside is that lack of focus that the force would have, purely because it's just one of every choice.
Yeah.
And it's whether or not the rules that you benefit from are are enough of a benefit to warrant taking it. Now, interestingly, it leads on very well to the war cohort.
Yeah, which we've got here. So this is our war cohort. And the interesting thing about the war cohort is that in the formation, it's just 3 battle maniples.
Yeah, yeah.
So 3 of these bad boys here. So restrictions. There's a designer's note here. Although the units cannot normally belong to more than one detachment, units from a battle maniple that is part of a war cohort are an exception. They count as part of both formations and have all associated special rules. If your warlord is part of a formation or army list entry that makes up part of a war cohort, that entire war cohort is your primary detachment. What does that mean?
So basically that means that usually you can't put detachments within detachments within detachments or formations into detachments. But what we have here is something that says it's obviously a formation that's designed to incorporate the battle maniple.
Yeah.
Because the choice is that you take 3 battle maniples. Obviously then that kind of dictates it to be something to use at larger points.
Yes.
And it also makes up for the fact that...
Do we have an idea of what the points value of a battle maniple? Well, generally, we generally looking at like 600 or 700 points there for a battle maniple?
I think for a smallest one, so if we have 90, 50 and 50, so we're talking about 150, 150, 150, 150, 450. Yeah, about 750, 800 points. Without any kind of extra options or things like that there.
Yeah, so so here we're definitely looking like a 2,500 point list.
Yeah.
Or a 2,000 to 2,500 point list. The special rules of it has the Crux Mechanicus again, which allows you to do that re-roll on the Warlord traits table, and you get the preferred enemy rule. But it also has this one, Enhanced Imperative Resolution. If your army includes 1 or more detachments or formations with this special rule, you can, once per game, choose to reuse a Doctrina imperative that your army has already used earlier in the game. Now, let me just double check what that could potentially mean for us. So, the Doctrinas, once again, if you've been watching along for the week, we had talked about how it's basically almost like a U shape during the game, that you're starting out with this one, and then towards your end game, you're ending up with this one. I do like the idea of being able to reuse some of these. That is particularly useful, because especially when you consider that you've got Binaric Omniscience, which is until the start of your next turn, all models in friendly units with the special rule of the Doctrina Imperatives add 3 to their ballistic skill characteristic, but subtract 2 from their weapon skill. Imagine the 2 rounds of shooting with that.
It would be pretty effective. It's pretty good, yeah. As we said, it's a higher point cost kind of formation, but the rule there is pretty good.
It's a little bit aspirational, though, isn't it? The likes of the war cohort. It is. That's quite a big collection of models.
Yeah.
That's not something that I can imagine a new player is going to be able to get to quickly. Slow down, guys. If you want to get a bit of Mechanicus rocking in your armies, to begin with, a single box of Skitarii will allow you to add it to your guard or your Marines or something like that. This is interesting.
Yeah, I think what they've tried to do is make up for the lack of units within the Codex. So what they're giving you is extra special rules which kind of make up for that lack of units. So it means that when you get to this kind of points cost, you're not completely and utterly bored of the same thing again and again. Because there will be gamers out there who do want this size of force from the Skitarii. They're a very iconic sort of unit, military unit, and
as we have talked about even from day one of Mechanicus Week, we've talked about in Titanicus, the Skitarii coming down. These guys utterly kick ass. They are a horrendous force that is unleashed upon an enemy. And no enemy is feared by these guys. They will just go in on anything. There isn't a huge amount of choice within the book.
No.
Well, we kind of know why that is, because there are limits to the amount of models that that could be produced for the likes of this, and you tend these days you don't find pages for models that don't exist anymore.
No.
So the War Cohort, it is interesting, but to me it just smacks of a bit aspirational, a little bit, take that and just add in just do it again. It's a wee bit cookie cutter for me.
Yeah. But what it does do is it builds in that redundancy that you wouldn't have in the standalone battle maniple.
True.
Because you have multiple units of certain things.
But I think I'd be more inclined to probably come up with a more personalized list.
Yeah.
Because so much as it would be cool to have 2 rounds of shooting, based on the Doctrine's imperative, especially that +3 to ballistic skill would be.
The great thing is that because this army is so accessible to Imperial players, if you had a couple of mates that were doing the same thing and adding a wee bit extra, get them to bring their battle maniple, and you've got 3 battle maniples, and you can play a lovely big game with your 3 battle maniples.
But you would need 3 other players.
But you would need another player.
Okay.
And you need someone to fight.
Let's keep moving on. Okay. So next up, we're into some of the more specialist formations, I would imagine. So here we have the Sicarian Kilcade. So what can you tell us about that one, AJ?
So this is kind of focusing in on those elites choices. What's great about these guys is, or what's interesting about this is that it focuses on larger amounts of the Rust Stalker.
Yeah,
units.
3 units of Sicarian Rust Stalkers, 1 unit of Sicarian Infiltrators.
Now we looked at these units earlier on in the week, and we kind of came to the agreement that they are quite a nice unit to use.
Yeah,
and they are quite a lot of fun. They're quite quick, and they're able to kind of get around the battlefield quite quickly. I think the special rules for the formation reflect that quite well.
Well, they've got malignant cessations. All enemy models within 12 inches of the unit of Sicarian Infiltrators from this formation are affected by the unit's neurostatic aura special rule. What is the neurostatic aura special rule?
So that was the rule that the Infiltrators had, that minus weapon skill, ballistic skill, initiative, and I think there was one other.
Let me just double check of the Infiltrators. Neurostatic aura. All enemy models within 6 inches of one or more models with this special rule subtract 1 from their weapon skill, ballistic skill, initiative, and leadership.
So this is bumping that up
and
to
12.
And
bumping it up to 12 inches. So long as your Rust Stalkers are within 12 inches of the Infiltrators, anything they go up against is going to be at a disadvantage, almost right across the board, to be honest.
Very
so
much.
They also have a Slaughter Sprint. Once per game, or on any game turn after the first, Sicarian Rust Stalkers from this formation can charge in the assault phase, even if they made a run move in the same turn. I want this one. This is the formation for me. I really like the idea of this. You can imagine this particular formation, because there's not an awful lot of points in that.
No.
I would be looking at numbers similar to that anyway.
Yeah. So you're probably actually talking 200, 300, 450, about 585, 600 points once you gear them up. So that's not a terrible amount of points for the amount of units that you're getting.
And to be able to do that, once per game on any game turn after the first. So I can't do it in the first turn.
It's going to be turn 2.
It's going to be turn 2. It is going to be turn 2.
It's going to be turn
2. Yes, absolutely. Right, the Iron Strider Cavaliers are next up. Okay, fluff-wise, any particular background to these guys? They're obviously. Well, let's discuss the formation first, and then we can get to that. Yeah. So it's 2 units of Sidonian Dragoons and 1 unit of Iron Strider Ballistari. They have quite a bit of special rules. So they have acute senses. Yeah. Which is
acute senses means that when they outflank, they are able to re-roll which side they come in from. So When you're outflanking, you roll 1-2 for one side, 3-4 for the other, and 5-6 you pick. So you would get to re-roll. So it means that rather than it being a third of the time you get the one you want, yeah, it's more than that. It's down to about a 6.
Yeah, you would only re-roll if you definitely got the one you didn't want, though.
Yeah.
You know, because you'd be stuck with the second result.
Yeah, well, if you got the one you wanted.
Yeah, well, right enough. Yeah, it's a 50-50 chance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in fact, it's more. It's
66.
4 points out of 6 that you'll get the one you want. Right, okay. Duh.
So and that's without acute senses. And
Yeah.
then whenever you add that into the mix, that's, you know.
Okay, and then they have the outflank special rule, which means that they can come in on the flanks. They have other special rules like ident confirmed. At the start of the first game turn, nominate one character in the enemy army. Models from this formation re-roll failed to wound rolls against the nominated character and its unit. Is Warlord by any chance? Or
It could be, yeah, it could be. That would probably be the best choice.
yeah, and just send them in, because if you can take, what happens if you take out an opponent's Warlord?
You get an extra victory point at the end of the battle. Standard missions, there you have 3 bonus victory points. You've got First Blood, which is the person that kills the first unit. Either side. You've got Line Breaker, which is when you get into your enemy's deployment zone by the end of the game. And then you also have the Warlord, Slay the Warlord. Slay the Warlord is a bonus victory point as well, and it's one that you can pick up, depending on the army, fairly easy.
Yeah.
Particularly same with Line Breaker and First Blood. If you remember those, sometimes they can just pip your opponent to the post at the end.
Yeah.
When you're calculating it all up.
Okay, they also have mind-linked hunters. Models in this formation can always trace line of sight and shoot through other models in this formation without conferring a cover save for shooting through an intervening unit, which is fairly handy, to be honest. And then they have the Noose Titans. All units in this formation must be placed in reserve. When making reserve rolls, make a single roll for the entire formation. In addition, start making reserve rolls for this formation from your first turn. On a successful reserve roll, all units in this formation arrive from reserve. I like that rule.
That's cool.
I really like that rule. If we could have got something like that rule on the Scarian Kilcade, that would have been quite interesting as well. You know, it definitely does. Well, it does. It gives you an interesting psychological impact on an opponent, because it's always quite a thing whenever reserves arrive, but they kind of sometimes arrive in drips and drabs. Well, if you can get the whole thing in,
plus with the acute senses, they are most likely gonna arrive where you need them.
Yeah,
and they're also very quick, because the whole unit has the formation has that Dune Strider. Yeah, so you're already quite efficient. I would definitely take the Phosphor Serpenta on those guys, on the Dragoons, particularly because whenever you come in from outflank and when you come in from reserve, you cannot charge on the turn that you arrive. So you would maybe just need that extra wee shot just to give you that extra turn of doing something. Something
to soften it up just a bit. Okie dokie. That is that for the formations of the Skitarii.
Yeah.
What options then do we have within Cult Mechanicus?
So again, we've got 4 choices in the Cult Mechanicus. They're generally not as army-wide. We don't have a similar sort of choice to the Skitarii, where you're looking at their sort of battle maniple and things like that there.
So here we have Cohort Cybernetica and an Elimination Maniple. So we'll start off with this one here, the Cohort Cybernetica. The formation consists of 1 Tech Priest Dominus and 2 Castellan Robot Maniples, which we like. We like these guys.
So already when we look back to yesterday's video, you had already said about wanting to take 2 squads of these. Yeah. So this is of absolutely no consequence to your army.
Yeah, so I could take this, because this is exactly what I was thinking of taking anyway thereabouts. So I could take this, get what I want, plus a bit. So there are some restrictions. All models in this formation must be fielded as a single unit, even though this is not normally allowed. the formation's Tech Priest Dominus cannot leave this unit. Okay? Special rules. Adept of the Cybernetica. This formation's Tech Priest Dominus counts as a Cybernetica Datasmith for the purposes of the Castellan Battle Protocol's special rule. That saves you points on the Datasmith then. Furthermore, as long as this Tech Priest Dominus has not been removed as a casualty, any Castellan Battle Protocol that you choose at the end of your turn takes effect immediately for all Castellan robots in this formation.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Targeting override. In the shooting phase, any number of this formation's Cybernetica Datasmiths and or the Tech Priest Dominus can choose to direct the fire of one of this formation's Castellan robots instead of shooting. For each model that does so, one of the formation's Castellan robots can shoot at a different target to the rest of the unit. That's tasty, isn't it?
That's quite good, yeah.
And then there's a little designer's note. This formation counts as 3 units for the purpose of Canticles of the Omnissiah until it is completely destroyed, and counts as 3 units for the purposes of victory points when it is completely destroyed. And until it is completely destroyed, it doesn't count as any. There's so much upside to that formation.
Very much so.
You know, there's a classic example. That's a that's a group of models that I was planning to take anyway, if I could. I really like the look of taking this this group of models, and here I have the option to do what I already wanted to do and get 3 of the best special rules that I could possibly have hoped for that.
Yeah. So it takes away that risk you have to, or that challenge in your mind of, is this going to be the right canticle? Because it takes effect immediately.
Yeah.
So immediately it's already into effect. So it is the one that you will want. You've got 3 Datasmiths in the unit, so it means that you're not going to run out of Datasmiths for changing your protocols.
Yeah, as long as one of them's alive, it can continue to pump the protocols.
Change the protocols. And then you've also got that option of splitting your fire. So it doesn't limit them in terms of being 1 unit. It means that because you have essentially 3 Datasmiths, you've got the Dominus and the 2 Datasmiths, you could actually split your fire 3 different ways. So again, you're not feeling that limitation of being 1 unit.
Yeah. Moving on, we have the Elimination Maniple. Its formation is 2 to 3 units of Cataphron Destroyers and 1 to 3 Castellan Robot Maniples. I'll just bring that up for you so you can have a quick look at that. So this is it here.
So these are the heavy hitters.
Yeah. Once again, there's everything in this formation that we like. It has Elimination Volley as its special rule. If a Castellan robot from this formation scores 1 or more unsaved wounds, glancing hits or penetrating hits on an enemy unit with a weapon that has the Luminogen special rule, all Cataphron Destroyer units from this formation that target the same enemy unit add 1 to their ballistic skill characteristic, and their weapons gain the Ignore Cover special rule until the end of that phase.
That's filthy.
That is very good, isn't it?
Yeah. So that is where particularly you would want to swap your robots from the Flamers. I know you love them, but that is where you'd want to swap the Flamers out and the Power Fists out for those phosphor rounds.
Yeah.
Because being able to hit those things with a grav, so you can take 3 units of Cataphron Destroyers.
Yes.
So
you would.
And you would.
Yeah.
We would kit them all out with the graviton weapons.
Yes.
Even the plasma culverins are quite good, but I would probably say the Gets Hot is too much of a limitation. So you'd stick in all of those lovely grav shots. So I think it's 6 shots per one. It's 18 per squad. 18 threes, 36. 18, 36. 40.
A lot.
So a lot of grav hits. And then not only are they getting bonuses to their ballistic skill.
Yeah, it's 50-something shots anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
52 shots, ballistic skill 4 now because because they've got that bonus to their ballistic skills. So they're hitting on 3s, and you don't get any cover. So not only do you not get your 2-up armor save because a graviton weapon is AP2.
Mm-hmm.
You also don't get
Your cover save.
Your cover save.
Oh, that is filthy, isn't it?
So it's definitely useful.
And the interesting thing is, there's nothing in that you wouldn't take in a normal Cult Mechanicus army.
No, there's no bad unit.
You know,
there's no unit that you're looking at that going, oh, I don't really.
I don't really have a purpose for that.
Yeah.
You know, if they had stuck some of the Electro Priests in there, I maybe would have said, but that's all good stuff.
That's all good stuff.
That's all good stuff.
Speaking of Electro Priests,
let's pop over to the Numinous Conclave. So we have the Numinous Conclave and the Holy Requisitioner. So we'll kick off with this one first, the Numinous Conclave. Right, the formation itself is 2 to 3 units of Fulgurite Electro Priests and 2 to 3 units of Corpus Cari Electro Priests. This would need to be something quite special, AJ, for this to call to me. Special rules Crusader. What is that?
So we looked at Crusader with the Skitarii quite a bit. We'll just recap on what that is.
While you're looking that up, there are restrictions. You must have an equal number of each type of unit in this formation. So if you go for 3 of one, you have to go for 3 of the other.
So Crusader thankfully makes them a little bit quicker, which is what they were really hoping for. Crusader is a unit that contains at least one model with a special rule. Rolls an extra dice when making run moves, and uses the highest dice rolled. In addition, a unit that contains at least one model with this special rule, and this is quite crucial actually, adds D3 to its sweeping advance totals. Okay?
Right, because these guys are tasty enough in close combat. Our concern was just getting them into close combat because of their low armor.
Yeah, our concern was getting them into close combat. And you remember their force field?
Yeah.
They have to win the combat.
That's right.
Wipe out the enemy, and it can be sweeping advance to gain that 3+ invulnerable.
And this is just tweaked that a little bit. Yeah, so this is starting to improve things. Okay, there are other special rules. The Corpus Cari giveth. Models in a unit Corpus Cari Electro Priest from this formation that is within 6 inches of one or more units of Fulgurite Electro Priests from this formation fire 1 additional shot with their electrostatic gauntlets when making shooting attacks. Enemy units that suffer 1 or more unsaved wounds from these shooting attacks are said to be electrified until the end of the assault phase. Okay? The Fulgurites taketh away. Units of Fulgurite Electro Priests from this formation reroll failed to wound rolls when fighting with their Electroleech staves if they are locked in close combat with a unit that contains any electrified units, or locked in close combat with anything that contains electrified units. What does that mean then? So
what you're looking at here is the synergy between the 2 units that they're building in. So let's think about that end goal. Let's keep that in mind. We want our Fulgurite Electro Priests to end up with a 3-up invulnerable.
Yes.
Okay. So
to do that, they have to wipe out a unit.
Yeah. So they're giving us the Corpus Cari. So because we have to have equal numbers, I would probably say 2 each, because you want the squads to be fairly sizable. Yeah. We touched on that earlier. So what you have there is you've got the Corpus Cari version that are you're all gonna move very quick. You're probably gonna run turn 1 to get there as quick as you can. You're gonna use the Corpus Cari to whittle down the enemy numbers, and with any luck get that electrocution or electrified off. Electrified off. Once that happens then you've got your Fulgurites. Get them into combat. Wipe out the enemy, or at least make them fail by enough or lose by enough that will then force the enemy to be sweeping advanced. You will use your extra D3 to beat that. Yep. You'll wipe them out, and then you have that mini Death Star unit that has the 3-up invuns.
Right, so by gaining electrified with the Corpus Cari, basically, when your Fulgurite's going to close combat, they can re-roll failed to wound when fighting if they're electrified. Thus, more likely to kill the unit, or at least get the unit to a point where it's going to flee, and it can be advanced. And then when you've got that, then you're in business.
Yeah. It's a gamble.
I like the way that clearly the designers were thinking the same thing about these units that we were, and have then created a formation specifically to buff them up a bit to make this more likely to pull it off.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
So it's not a bad one. It certainly makes them a bit more playable. Plus, if you keep in mind your canticles, you're able to use your canticles to boost that close combat ability. Yeah. To give them reroll to hit, or even give them the one that allows those instant hits whenever they arrive in combat. So they'll have their Hammer of Wrath.
So if you can stack up these things at the right moment, you have some real options to turn this into something quite devastating. Okay. Moving on, we have the Holy Requisitioner. Requisitioner. So the Holy Requisitioner is 1 Tech Priest Dominus and 2 to 3 units of Cataphrom Breachers. The special Deep Strike, straight off the bat.
It gets better.
Deep Strike, a special rule, and then they have the Apparition Extremis. All models in this formation must be placed in Deep Strike Reserve. Fair enough. When making reserve rolls, make a single roll for the entire formation, which you can choose to re-roll. On a successful reserve roll, all the units in the formation arrive from reserve. The formation's Tech Priest Dominus must be placed first, but does not scatter when he deep strikes, so long as he is placed within 6 inches of an objective marker. This formation's Cataphrom Breachers do not scatter when they deep strike, so long as they are placed within 6 inches of this formation's Tech Priest Dominus. Boom! Beside an objective, thump, on top of an objective.
Yeah.
Inhuman Avarice, while they are within 6 inches of an objective marker, units of Cataphrom Breachers from this formation have the counterattack and Zealot special rules. In other words, you are not going to move them off the objective.
You're not shifting those guys. It's pretty good. Basically, this is showing how completely driven by new technology and reclaiming those lost artifacts the Cult Mechanicus is. They would stop at nothing to make this work, to reclaim that lost tech. And this is just a prime example. I think it's wonderful. I think it puts you in the right position every time.
This is the kind of unit, though, that, like, you have to roll for your reserves. You can't opt not to roll for your reserves.
No.
So you have to roll for them. But the fact that you can re-roll means if you don't want these guys at the start and you get a successful result, you could re-roll it and hope that you don't get a successful result, and then hopefully get it later in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. You'd probably be quite happy for these guys to arrive early and just thump down, but I kind of like the idea of them coming just that little bit later when the battle has started to fizzle out just a little bit, and you can start to see the ebb and flow of where everything's going. Then, boom! It just sit there.
Plus, you have that advantage of knowing that they're not going anywhere. Now, interestingly, what they would be particularly good at is the relic mission. The relic mission is where there's a central objective which can be moved. You collect it at the end of your turn. And if you're able to collect that objective, you can then move it towards your own lines. These guys would be impossible to get off the relic because you have 2 units. So 1 unit, claim the relic, keep the rest nice and close, and use them as the bumper.
Yeah.
And then you just have a moving bunker of of units that just are destined to keep hold of that relic.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about general structure then. Right. So let's take this book for example. Okay. Would you kind of double up on a couple of these? Holy Requisitioners is clearly for me an obvious one to take.
Definitely the Holy Requisitioner, and I think as well the Elimination The elimination maniple as well is particularly good. I just love the battle servitors. I think that any time I could utilize those with any extra special rules, I'd be more than happy to. There is one more formation, which isn't in the books, but was an exclusive in the White Dwarf. If you don't mind passing the sheet,
I'll pass that over to you.
And this is a rather special one. These ones are good.
Yeah.
They're nice, and they're certainly very usable. But this one is kind of particularly powerful.
Right. Okay.
And wonderfully fluffy.
And this is Cult Mechanicus.
This is Cult Mechanicus and Skitarii. You're gonna like this one.
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
It actually utilizes some of the formations in both of the books. So the War Convocation.
Now the fact that this is in White Dwarf, this is completely legal.
Completely legal. Yeah.
You know, I could play this in a tournament. I could.
Yeah. Well.
Unless they said otherwise.
I mean. Always with the tournaments, check with the tournament organizers. Some tournaments only allow, kind of standard kind of force organizations and things like that there. Any of our tournaments that I've run in the past, I'd be quite happy to. I love open 40k. If it's a written rule and you have the published element of it and it's still within the edition, I am more than happy to allow it to be played.
Right, go put me out of my misery. What is it?
Okay, great. So the War Convocation.
Yeah.
Is one Cult Mechanicus Battle Congregation.
Right, so wait till I get that one. So the Battle Congregation
is essentially the whole, the standard detachment.
Okay, so a standard detachment from this. Okay, yep.
Then we have Skitarii Battle Maniple, which is
what we covered at the start of the video.
1 unit of everything.
Yeah, 1 unit of each, yeah. So Battle Maniple there, yeah.
And then one Imperial Knight or Oath-Sworn Brotherhood. Okay, so that is a single Imperial Knight, which can join this War Convocation.
Yeah.
Now, that's the main structure of the force.
Yeah.
I've totaled it out. You can get one for as cheap as about 1,700 points. So it's achievable within a standard game of 40k.
Yeah.
The special rules are particularly special. The Brotherhood of Mars.
Yeah.
All units in this formation, you're gonna love this, have the Canticles of the Omnissiah special rule. So regardless of the fact that they are Skitarii units, regardless of the fact that it's an Imperial Knight, it has the Canticles special rule, which means that you're going to have those 8+ units.
Oh, yes. So all of them count.
All of them. Plus, because they, in their standard, the Skitarii still get their Doctrinas.
As well.
Because it doesn't say that it takes them out. So, and formations you always get the rules below the formation as well.
Yeah. So you still get your Doctrinas, so you're still starting out with that +3 to your ballistics, but it's only to the Skitarii. But the Canticles apply to all of them, including the Skitarii.
Yeah. So
right.
that means that you're always going to get that 8+ from the start of the game. Next rule. So you get your standard reroll of the Warlord trait that most, if because it's Battle Forged. And you like this one. Might of the Adeptus Mechanicus. All upgrades are free.
Oh, come on.
All upgrades are free. Weapons, war gear, relics of Mars.
Oh, come
Arcana
on.
Mechanicus. And no weapons with the Get Hot special rule. Get Hot.
Oh, you are making this up.
It's a real thing. So, basically, you can get a couple of hundred extra points of war gear. You'll be putting those... for me, one of the best reasons for the Get Hot would be in the Skitarii book, because the standard Skitarii Rangers and Vanguard get a wonderful weapon, which otherwise isn't so wonderful because it gets hot. It's called the Plasma Caliver. So it's 30 points, which you wouldn't pay for because it's 30 points.
So it's free.
But you get it free.
Yeah.
And you can take a squad of 10 of them with 3 of these Plasma Culverins.
Come on. Right, yeah.
It's a Strength 7 AP 2 weapon because it's plasma. It's as standard, it gets hot. It's got 3 shots, as opposed to the standard 2 shots. And it is, I believe it's 18-inch range. 18-inch range, yeah. So it's a pretty nice weapon. Plus, if you wanted to take the standard plasma culverins on your battle servitors, it's much more accessible as well.
Yeah.
Because they have 2 shots.
We've got to build this list.
I just think it's wonderfully fluffy.
Yes. Oh, come on, it's cheesy as hell.
Oh, in fluff terms,
it feels like Mechanicus.
It feels like a Mechanicus army. Of course, they would have a knight, and of course they would, and they would have the best tech. They don't, they just wouldn't go to war with that cheaper option.
Right.
They would always take that better option. I think it's a wonderful, it kind of gets around all of the things that sometimes you struggle with within the books, those heavy points costs for those upgrades. But I just think...
and this formation is called the what?
The War Convocation.
The War Convocation. Well, guys, there you have it. Right, come on over to beastsofwar.com. We're going to start looking at other lists. Now, this is a list progression for anybody that wants to get into this. It's very specifically thought out, so as you get some really cool models, some really good gameplay options, and you basically build it up over time. And then we also have a couple of very special, interesting lists, which start to bring in some interesting stuff. We've got Valkyries in there, we've got Stormlord in there. Coming out across, we'll be waiting for you. And for the rest of you, thanks for watching.
Another one of the Dune crawlers to boost your shooting.
Yeah.
Or just one of the Cataphrone destroyers, which are never a bad choice.
You have some great shooting in this army. You have some anti-air in this army. You have some anti-horde in this army from the Valkyrie. You have good transportation in it. You have gorgeous models in it. So it's which ultimately it has to come down to that.
Yeah.
Do you like the models that are in the army? And this has pretty much everything I like already in it. Good one. Okay.
Anime cyberpunk style meets skirmish combat in Infinity. Experience 8 high-tech factions and fight to control the human sphere at the Infinity Hub on beastsofwar.com. Keep your blaster handy, the West is a dangerous place. Fight to survive as men turn to monsters and the dead rise on the Wild West Exodus Hub at beastsofwar.com.